Right guys, we have updates regarding the iPad 10 including case listings and also details regarding the release, and so let's delve into it. So we did cover a case listing for this iPad in the past, but now we have a case listing from ESR, who of course are one of the most popular case manufacturers, and so we can trust that these cases are legit. And they do provide us with some pretty interesting details regarding this iPad. So on first glance, what we see in the case listings basically are dream budget iPads. It has the flat sides, it has the thin bezels, it basically looks like the iPad Air 4, and I'm sure many would be happy with this. However, much like previous case listings, I also think this is too good to be true, because this would cannibalize other iPads. Like, why would you buy the M1 iPad Air when of course you could theoretically get this that basically has the same features for less? And yes, I know the M1 does have some exclusive features, but do remember Apple's now given us Stage Manager on older iPad Pros, and so we could see it with other iPads. But even if that's not the case, let's be honest guys, Stage Manager's still pretty rough on the iPads, and the exclusive M1 features are not enough to justify getting that over this dream budget iPad. And so yes, for that reason, while I do believe the dimensions and the cutouts of this case, the concept they show us with the case might be false and might be based off leaks. And yeah, that would make sense when of course case manufacturers, even the popular ones, do not get any details regarding the product before release, and so yeah, they're basing this case off rough CADs that have leaked, and they don't provide all the details of the product. And so I do think there's a heavy chance the front of this iPad is going to be similar to the iPad 9, like of course My Smart Price did tell us. But because the case does cover the sides and the rear of the device, I do think we're going to get flat sides, and so yeah, that should mean Pencil 2 support. And yeah, I guess that does make sense considering that of course we're getting the Type-C ports. However, unfortunately, based on other case listings, this iPad's still going to be thicker than the Air and the Pro, so of course that could mean the panel's not laminated. Now this really does suck because it's really the only thing that stops me from buying this iPad, and so as long as that's a thing on this iPad, I'm not gonna get it. Now yes, I'm aware the main demographic for this iPad, students and kids, do break the iPad screens, and so panels that are not laminated are much easier to fix. But honestly, that's pretty much the only advantage. The pros outweigh the cons in this instance, and yeah, I do think most consumers are gonna appreciate a panel that's laminated. Heck, even the students who use this, I'm sure the Apple Pencil experience is gonna be a lot better with a panel that's laminated, and so yes, I'm praying the case listings are wrong about this. Now the camera bump they show us in this listing's completely different to what we saw with the My Smart Price CADs, and to be honest, I'm leaning towards ESR's interpretation because this does match the rest of the range, the dual cameras look out of place in the lineup, and frankly it might confuse consumers since it does look like the base iPad has dual cameras, and so consumers might think this has a better camera than of course the iPad Air Mini, which I don't think is going to be the case. Also, there was a flash with the My Smart Price CADs, which made no sense. The iPad Air doesn't even get a flash, and so I doubt Apple's going to give it to the budget iPad. Realistically, the back of this is going to look identical to the iPad Air 5, so of course, ESR's case listings most likely write about this. Now, there are 4 speaker holes on the case. That does not mean we're getting quad speakers like My Smart Price told us. Instead, we should see the dual stereo speakers the iPad Air 5 has. And that actually should be a decent improvement over the current speaker layout with the iPad 9. Now, there is a cutout for the power button on the case, and so I'm assuming ESR thinks we're going to see Touch ID on the sides. However, I don't think that's going to be the case. As I said, the front should be similar to the iPad 9, so that means we're getting the home button on the front with Touch ID 1st gen. However, here's hoping we get the upgrade to 2nd gen Touch ID, which of course was originally introduced with the 6S, but the budget iPad still does not have it. Now moving on to the release for this iPad, many of us have been expecting it to release at the October event, but Gurman does suggest that might not be the case. So Mark Gurman recently told us there was a possibility there would not be an October event, and instead, we could see press releases for the October announcements. Now, in a way, this does make sense because, for the most part, everything rumoured for the October event are minor refreshes. Now, the iPad 10 is really the only product that's remotely major enough to release at an event, but Gurman surprisingly says nothing about that in this new report. He says we should see Mac Minis, MacBook Pros, and iPad Pros launch, even maybe an Apple TV, but nothing about this iPad, and that's pretty interesting. Now, is Gurman suggesting this iPad's been pushed back? I'm not too sure myself, but considering there have been production issues with iPads, and considering this is going to be a redesign, I'm sure there's going to be retooling that of course might make this harder to produce, and so yeah, maybe this iPad's been pushed back. And maybe that's the reason we're not seeing the October event, because apart from this iPad 10, really everything else are chip refreshes. So now you may be wondering if it's delayed, when are we going to see this release? Well, of course, a November or December release with a press release could make sense. Apple's done this with some products in the past. For example, AirPods Max had production issues, and so Apple just randomly dropped that via press release at a later date, and so yeah, we could see that happen with this iPad. It's either that or of course I'm looking way too much into this, and Gurman simply forgot to include this iPad in this new report. And yeah, I guess we could see a press release announcement for this iPad alongside the other releases, because ultimately these new features are things we've seen with other iPads. And actually, like my friend Michael says, maybe Apple's afraid to announce the massive price hike for this iPad at an event, and so releasing it discreetly via press release could be the better move. Anyways, let's delve into your questions. So Jay Sparrow says all he wants is a panel that's laminated, and yes, I'm completely with you, this is the biggest con of the base iPad. I would actually consider buying the base iPad if the panel was laminated, because my iPad usage is pretty basic, and so the budget iPad in every other way is perfect, apart from the panel not being laminated. And so yeah, please Apple, do resolve that with this iPad. Anyways, tell me in the comments below guys, when do you think the iPad 10 is going to release? Anyways, thank you for watching guys, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumours. Check out the video link above on details regarding the iPhone 15 series, and on that note, see ya peeps.